Tales of Zestiria and its prequel, Tales of Berseria, both emphasise a shared key theme of human nature and what it means to be human. Unlike other games in the series, Zestiria and Berseria focus on a world largely populated by humans, with the only other humanoid creatures being the ethereal Seraphim or the beastly Hellions, both of which are things which humans can turn into, with varying degrees of difficulty. There is one key figure apparent in both games which channels this key theme through both the legends and realities it holds: the Shepherd, a legendary hero revered by ordinary humans, with the mission of quelling the malevolence of the world and restoring some form of order to it. However, the mission of the Shepherd is not a simple one, and it could be argued that the only one known to have been successful in his mission is Zestiria's protagonist, Sorey. As such, a question comes to mind. Why is Sorey considered the only successful shepherd, and how does this relate to human nature in the world of Zestiria and Berseria? This analysis will delve into 4 of the named shepherds in Zestiria and Berseria in an attempt to determine what makes Sorey a successful shepherd where his predecessors failed. As such, this video will contain major spoilers for both games, as well as the manga Tales of Zestiria A Time of Guidance, which I also refer to for more information on Sorey's direct predecessor Michael. If you want to avoid spoilers, I suggest you go play the games or watch a let's play of them. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the video. From the moment Tales of Zestiria begins, we are thrust into a legend known to all the citizens of Glenwood, that of the Shepherd. They are the hero who dispels the darkness, then vanishes once their job is done, only to return once the world needs them once more. Already, before we meet the main character who will eventually take on that role, we are told a legend which sets up our expectations for the Shepherd to be someone more powerful than any other human, whose task it is to save the world from peril. This image has persisted for at least 1000 years by the time Zestiria occurs, and as such it makes sense that the legends would not speak in detail of the shepherds unless they were written directly by previous shepherds or their squires. Even then though, the mystery is just the beginning of a slew of characteristics which seemingly separate shepherds from any ordinary humans. Part of the shepherd's job is to meditate on the idea of human nature and how humans should live their lives, given that they act as mediators between humans and seraphim, as well as utilising their powers to save humans who have fallen to their own malevolence. Each shepherd has a different outlook on these things, as well as different methods of achieving harmony between humans, seraphim, and Hellions. Claudin, for example, was one of the first shepherds, dying not long before the events of Tales of Berseria and acting as a shepherd until its final moments. He swore an oath to extend his lifespan past that of an ordinary human, which meant he was able to live around 300 years before he was forced to break his oath in saving Artorius by killing the enemy which threatened the young protege. The combined effect of his oath and his shepherd powers separated him heavily from the humans he surpassed in his time, but he still involved himself in human affairs far more than later shepherds were advised to, leading Midgard as its king and the head of the exorcists for many years. The fact that we do not know much about Claudin other than his legacy, told to us largely by biased parties, separates him even further from being a human. The man is more a myth than a man at all. As one of the first known shepherds, this already paints the image of the shepherd as a man not at all human. But the fact of the matter is that Claudin was human, something which becomes apparent in his death. Sacrificing his own life to save Artorius's might not have been an action fueled by reason, but it shows his human compassion which remained even after so long of living. The fact that he managed not to kill anyone for 300 years to maintain his oath helps to paint him as an image of an ideal shepherd, pure of heart and believing that all people deserve a chance to live, and as such it showed his human imperfections as he was killed by his own kindness. He held an ideal which stopped him from embracing death in the way which is taught in both Berseria and Zestiria, that death can also be a form of salvation. Claudin died because he focused too much on his own emotions and care for humans rather than balancing them with reason and facing the reality of human mortality. However, even if Claudin lived, it is unlikely he would have been a successful shepherd in terms of quelling the malevolence in the world. The flames of purification did not come into existence until after the Advent, and as such it may never have happened without Claudin's death. He would not have been able to defeat Hellions by himself either, since he couldn't break his oath not to kill anything, so there would have been no way for him to dispel the malevolence, especially with his decreasing influence, something which becomes apparent at the beginning of his successor's story. Artorius suffers the opposite fate from Claudin. He dies because his desire for unparalleled reason forces him to reject the concept of emotions, not only for himself, but for the whole world. After failing to spread the word of the Empyreans and watching them fall into a deep slumber due to the decrease in faith from the human populace, he travels alone to the east, feeling his own descent into malevolence. He meets Celica and begins a normal life in a ball, helping to drive away demons as best he can until the Scarlet Night occurs, and he loses his fiancée and unborn child souls to the hole at the Shrine of Tranquility. Had this never have happened, he might never have become the Shepherd, certainly not the one he ends up becoming after being taken advantage of by his shadow, Melchior, who convinces him to give up his emotions and to turn his fellow humans into vessels of reason. In the eye of the public, Artorius represents the ideal shepherd. He is a lone man, romanticised by popularity, who stands against the ugliness of the world and brings it to justice. The public revere him, write songs about him, and follow his wishes unconditionally. Of course, this is likely because Artorius is the first and probably last shepherd who lives during a time of the public being able to see the threats of the demons and the benefits of the Malachim even without resonance, and Artorius is the only one who has stepped up to utilise the Malachim in putting the demons to an end. All the people know is that Artorius' word keeps them safe, and thus they act as his flock, following the will of the shepherd. However, it is Artorius' views on humanity which are his downfall. Throughout Berseria, he asks the question, "Why do you think it is that birds fly?" Several answers are given by different characters, but the one he settles on is most indicative of his plight.
Birds must fly, because they possess strong wings. Mankind must be suppressed, because it possesses great sin.
It is his belief that the world should have no free will, and that people should do things not because they want to, but because they must, i.e. people should act upon their reason, rather than their perceived free will. In Artorius' mind, losing reason and logic turns one into a beast, something which his antithesis, Velvet, and her party embody as a group of people who follow their own free wills without reason for a large part of the game. As a shepherd, Artorius comes close to being successful in that he almost finds a method of stopping malevolence from being produced. However, his plan ultimately harms the world in the process, since all living beings lose their free will within it, thus making the planet more of a robotic machine than a living, breathing place. Effectively, he would have killed everyone in order to save them, which is not saving them at all in the end. But Artorius too cannot fully shake the imperfections of his human nature. Though he holds strong for the majority of the game, he is still daunted by the ugliness of the world and haunted by his own past mistakes. He dies at the hands of Velvet's free will, wielding his own sword of reason, and the last words he hears are ones of sentimentality. As he tells Velvet then, the Arthur she knew in her past died on the day of the Advent. Had it never happened, his situation would have been the same as Claudin's, with the power of purification never becoming available to the world, thus making it impossible to purify malevolence without killing the sources of it, which would not have solved the problem of a decreasing faith humanity had in Seraphim. About 1,000 years pass between Artorius and the next major shepherd in this discussion. Though there are likely hundreds of shepherds who lived during that time period, there are far too few details on them for them to be of any use to this discussion. The fact that malevolence still persists after those 1,000 years makes it clear that none of those shepherds were successful in quelling it. The only major event of note to consider is that the last known shepherd before Michael lived 200 years before the events of Zestiria, and that they perished in a battle against the Lord of Calamity, who was then defeated by Eisen as he turned into a dragon and ate them. This battle left Mautalis affected by the huge amount of malevolence produced there. With that then, we will move swiftly on to our next shepherd. Shepherd Michael is a quandary in himself in that we do not know much about his journey or his companions, or even if he had an antithesis. As there is no Lord of Calamity ever mentioned in relation to him, it is possible that he became the shepherd in a time where there was no great source of malevolence plaguing the world. My theory is that Lila, knowing that Mautalis was harbouring malevolence, knew a shepherd was needed to help purify the land once more, and to reinvigorate people's belief in the Five Lords and the Seraphim. Michael quells the malevolence alongside Lila for many years as he grows up at her side, writing the Celestial Record as he does so. The manga gives a lot more insight into Michael's character, explaining that his reason for writing the book is that he wanted to preserve the history of the shepherds, to provide a slice of hope for the human populace, and to eventually restore their faith in the Seraphim. With motives as pure as this, it is easy to see how Michael came to be a shepherd. However, he also makes mistakes during his time as a shepherd which lead to his inevitable downfall and thus his lack of success. His plan to increase faith in the Seraphim seems small-scale and gradual, given that he focuses on his retirement plans of building a village of people faithful to the Seraphim and allowing them to spread his teachings for him. He also moves Mautalis away from the people and up to the shrine where Mautalis first became an Empyrean, which was likely an attempt to keep him away from malevolence, though it ended up backfiring as the shrine was desecrated in the attack on Camlon, as the malevolence born there tipped him over the edge into Hellianhood. Michael's own emotions play a large part in this, as his own rage is what leads him to sacrifice baby Micleo to create the Lord of Calamity who will spearhead the Age of Chaos, Heldalf. Without his own descent into beastly fury, the situation would certainly have not become quite so dire as it did, but it is understandable given that emotions are part of human nature. Even had things not gone the way they had gone though, Michael still would likely have fallen to his own malevolence. He represents the romanticised notion of a lone shepherd, embodying it consciously as he relies only on his closest family, without allowing anyone to share the burdens he bears. He is the only shepherd of those this video discusses who does not have a known shadow or squire to help him with his mission. His only ally is Lila, as far as we know. Though Artorius was a lone shepherd in the end as well, he at least had the aid of not only Melchior but an entire army of exorcists and the faith of much of the world's population. In the end, what mattered most to Michael were the legends he wrote about in the Celestial Record, and maintaining the myth of the heroic shepherd who faced calamity single-handed in his fight to quell the malevolence. It is this insistence on following the myths and handling things alone which eventually lead to his downfall. With the failures of Claudin, Artorius and Michael in mind, we come to the shepherd who ends the Age of Chaos, Sorey. His development as a shepherd is perhaps easiest to see, since he is the protagonist of Zestiria, and thus we have the most information about his journey and his ideals throughout it. Sorey's views of the shepherd in the beginning are born of Michael's, though he doesn't realise it. He spends so much time learning about the shepherds alongside Micleo that he knows the legends back to front by the time he himself rises to become the next shepherd. Unlike his predecessors, however, Sorey aims to learn from the past and to utilise his knowledge in creating a better future. Much like the previous shepherds, Sorey experiences the burdens of his powers pretty early on, refusing to allow even his closest friend to fight alongside him, for fear of burdening him with something he shouldn't have to do just because he feels like he needs to stay at Sorey's side. When inviting people into the party as squires and sublords, he is hesitant until they prove to him that this is something they really want to do for their own benefit and not just for him. He ends up with a large party of people supporting him, something which the other shepherds did not have, and as such he does not have to bear the weight of the shepherd's mission on his shoulders alone. That isn't to say he never falters in this. As I have argued in my Sorey character analysis last year, Sorey's perspective becomes blinded at the same time as he loses his vision in one eye due to the strain of Alicia's Squire Pact. The residuum of that continues until after he reunites with the Seraphim in the Tintagel ruins. At this time, his companions tell him it would be foolish to go back to face off with Heldalf after having been defeated so easily by him this time around. His reasoning for wanting to do so is that it is the shepherd's mission to quell the Lord of Calamity, which shows how he is thinking of himself more in terms of the ideal shepherd in the legends rather than as himself. However, his friends are what help him to be himself rather than the shepherd. They help to ground him in the fact that he is still Sorey, the human, even as the humans around him react as though he's not due to his incredible powers. And to be fair, Sorey is different enough from ordinary humans even without the shepherd's mantle. Having grown up in a village of Seraphim, he has never had the chance to integrate into ordinary human society, and his immediately becoming a shepherd upon entering that world means that he never has the chance to do that in his lifetime as far as we are aware. Besides that, as a shepherd he has the power to armatize, which the manga states gradually softens the human sense of their own identity over time, since they are constantly being merged in body and consciousness with the seraph they're armatizing with. But Sorey first and foremost considers himself in the same way he always has, thanks to his friend's support. He is not changed by the romanticised notions of the shepherd, never thinking himself of a higher station than any other human, and always thinking first of how he can help people, even in small ways. When he is confronted by a false shepherd claiming to be him, Sorey isn't fazed. He is only happy that Malfor is spreading the idea of being faithful to the Seraphim, and later concerned when Malfor's actions seem to be causing malevolence in Gododin. Later, when Simone taunts him based on the mission of the shepherd, Sorey's answer is that he's not acting based on such a mission, but because he himself believes in his answer. Contrary to the public's dehumanization of him, Sorey is the first shepherd to truly accept himself and to act not based on his status, but on his personal beliefs and the answer he has found within himself on his journey. With all of this in mind, I believe the reason why Sorey is the only successful shepherd is clear. He is the first shepherd to truly strive for balance and to act as himself rather than as the shepherd. Thanks to the guidance of his friends, he makes decisions which balance his own emotions with the reason and understanding that he cannot save everyone with the power of purification, and that for some, death is the only form of salvation. In remaining grounded by his friends, he is able to stay himself throughout the difficult situations he must face, and in the end, he accepts reality, something which none of his predecessors were able to do. In essence, it is because Sorey is willing to change, grow, accept reality, and to rely on others that he succeeds in his mission as a shepherd, finally sparking the beginnings of a beautiful world, not one necessarily free of malevolence, but one in which humans can coexist with Seraphim, and those who falter can be given a second chance. But that's just my opinion. This analysis video has been a long time coming, and these are only some of the thoughts I've had about the nature of the world in these games. The focus of the discussion came from a comment, so thank you to the person who suggested it. If you disagree with anything I brought up, or if you have any other points to add, please let me know in the comments down below. I love reading everyone's thoughts and theories, and this is no exception. It's been a while since my last analysis video, kind of, that one doesn't count, and for that I'd like to apologise. Real life took over priority for a while and I ended up taking a longer break from analyses than I anticipated. I hope to start making these regularly again from now on. In my time away, I finished both my Let's Play of Tales of Zestiria and my Let's Play of Tales of Berseria, which I'm currently uploading post-game content for on Wednesdays. I'll link both playlists in the corner and in the description, so feel free to give those a watch if you like. I am also currently in the beginnings of a Let's Play of Tales of Vesperia, the definitive edition, which I'll link in the same places. I'm super excited to play through that game, so I hope you'll give it a watch. If you missed my last analysis video, no, not that one, I'll link a playlist containing all of my analyses so far as well. This is the first one I've made which includes Berseria in detail, which is something I really enjoyed. Hopefully this will be the first of many videos concerning both games, since I have a lot more to say about this universe. That being said, if you have any suggestions for future analysis videos, feel free to leave them down below. As I said, this video's focus was partly inspired by a comment I received, and it really inspires me to think about the questions you guys leave on my videos. I've received a few suggestions during my break which I've added to my list of ideas, so I'll try to get to those ones at some point in the future too. In any case, this outro has gone on for long enough. Thank you all so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great day, night, or whatever the time it is for you. And I will see you next time. Though Artorius was a lone shepherd in the end as well, he at least had the aid of not only— frick. Oh no, I said lone shepherd and I thought of loan sharks. And I'm just imagining, like, door-to-door shepherds. Hello, would you like to speak about our Lord and Saviour Bautalis?